6 years ago, my husband and I were traveling abroad when we were kidnapped. Our family only had enough money to pay for one of us. For Gideon's sake, I chose to stay behind and let him return home. Later, a powerful man paid my ransom. In return, I worked under him for 6 years and eventually became his most trusted aide. In the sixth year, after helping him resolve all his troubles, I was finally allowed to leave. With nothing holding me back, I began my journey home. However, I never expected that upon my return, I would find Gideon Chase already a successful man but still with no intention of ever rescuing me. He was living happily with his first love and they even had 2 children together. Furious, I confronted him. I asked why he had not waited for me. Why hadn't he come for me once he had the means? He looked at me coldly and said, "Celine, why would I save you? You've been passed around countless times over the past 6 years. Who knows if you're even pure and clean still?" His words were so cruel and heartless and it made me laugh in disbelief. So this was the man I once loved so deeply, the one for whom I sacrificed everything. At that moment, all I felt for Gideon Chase was hatred. If that was how it was, then he would pay every last bit of what he owed me. Celine Rivers, we're still legally married. My company is about to go public. If you show up now, I will never divorce you. He stared at me coldly as he spoke. After all, if he divorced me, he would be forced to give up a substantial amount of money, something he simply could not bear. On top of that, there was the price I paid to save his life 6 years ago. If word got out that Gideon and I were divorcing now, it would jeopardize his company's upcoming IPO for sure. But I looked him in the eye and shook my head. "Gideon Chase, let us get a divorce." He said nothing. Instead, he raised his hand and gestured behind him. The next second, a group of men rushed forward, forcefully dragged me away and locked me inside a room. "Just cool off in here." Then, with a detached expression, Gideon added, "As long as you do what I say, you'll remain Mrs. Chase. I'll make sure you live comfortably and my children will take care of you when you're old. But if you refuse to cooperate, I'll send you abroad." With that cold gaze and attitude, he turned and left. I was now a prisoner in the Chase family's house. 2 bodyguards were stationed outside my door, cutting off any chance of escape. However, what Gideon did not realize was that he had not taken my phone. In his eyes, I was just someone who had managed to flee back from overseas alone and helpless. He probably assumed that someone like me would not even have a phone and so he did not bother checking. What he did not know was that I had not come back alone. I picked up my phone and made a call. "Sir, I need your help." My voice trembled as I spoke and tears slipped down my cheeks. "I told you long ago. Any man who could abandon you and run off alone would never stay with you for life. Hold on for 3 more days. Stay in the Chase family's house and I'll be there soon." His voice rang through my phone. It steadied me, grounding me. What Gideon never knew was that on the very day he was rescued, my boss had already appeared before me. Not only was I untouched during those years, I was treated well. Exceptionally well. In fact, my boss rewarded me handsomely. I now had more wealth than Gideon could ever imagine. The only unfortunate thing was that he no longer had anything to do with me. Chapter 2. Since my boss would not arrive for another 3 days, I had no choice but to stay at the Chase family's residence. What I did not expect was for Gideon to show up in my room that very night. He sat across from me, stared into my eyes and said, "Celine, as long as you behave and wait until my company goes public, I'll divorce you. But when that time comes, you'll need to sign an agreement. I'll give you 150,000 and you'll take the money and leave quietly. Sabrina and I are together now. We have a child. All of my assets will belong to them in the future." I could not help but laugh at his words bitterly. 6 years ago, I gave up everything for Gideon Chase. I even sold all my assets back home just to secure his release. I still remember how, before he left, he held me tightly and promised to raise the money to save me once he was back. He swore he would wait for me, no matter what. And yet, what did he do once he returned to our country? He reunited with Sabrina Quinn almost immediately. Their eldest child was already 5. That meant he never intended to rescue me after he returned home. The truth was, he had already decided I was tainted and unworthy of him. But if it were not for him, would I have ended up in that situation? He was the one who insisted we go on that trip. I did not even want to go. And the ransom money that saved him? That came from selling my own home. Now, facing him again, I scoffed. Gideon, I understand perfectly. Just 3 more days. That was all I needed. I knew my boss had powerful contacts in this country. Once he arrived, everything would fall into place. As for Gideon Chase? He meant nothing to me anymore. Fine. Sign this. He handed me a document. I glanced over it. The agreement allowed for our divorce and he would pay me $150,000 in compensation. Without hesitation, I signed it. I've signed the divorce papers, Gideon. Can I leave now? I looked up and asked in a cold voice. Of course not. You'll stay here for the next few days. You can leave after my company goes public. He looked back at me indifferently as he spoke. After saying that, Gideon stood up and walked out of the room. The 2 bodyguards stationed at the door stepped forward and blocked my path, making any attempt to leave impossible. I looked at Gideon's retreating figure and shook my head in silent resignation. I knew he would not let me go at a time like this. Left alone in the room, I sat in silence, thinking about everything I had sacrificed for Gideon. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I had given this man my youth, only to end up abandoned and imprisoned like this. After crying until I was exhausted, I realized I was starving and I had not eaten anything all day. I opened the door, planning to ask for some food. But the moment I stepped out, the 2 bodyguards stopped me again. I need something to eat, I said flatly. They looked at me coldly and shook their heads, saying nothing. They ignored my request completely, refusing to let me pass. At that moment, the chill in my heart deepened. He had forced me to sign divorce papers and put me under house arrest, and now he would not even offer me a single bite of food. Just as I was about to argue with the guards, a woman entered the room carrying a basin. She looked at me with a bright, almost mocking smile. Behind her stood 2 children. The 2 kids stared at me with open curiosity. Then the older one, Gideon's son, pointed at me and asked loudly, "Mommy, is this the bitch you told us about?" Chapter 3. Hearing his words, I stared coldly at the little boy in front of me and said sharply, "I'm not a bitch. Your mother is. You're the bad one. You tried to steal my dad and now you're calling my mom a bitch. I'll beat you up." As he spoke, he lunged at me, his small fists swinging toward my body. I looked at the boy without a trace of emotion and pushed him away. He fell to the ground and immediately burst into loud, pitiful cries. Sabrina's expression darkened. Without hesitation, she turned to the bodyguards and snapped, "Hold her down." At her command, the bodyguards forced me to the floor. Sabrina stormed up to me and slapped me twice across the face. Pain stung my cheek, but I glared at her, unyielding. "Celine Rivers, let me tell you the truth. Gideon and I are the ones truly in love. Do you really think he ever loved you? You don't even know the truth that the kidnapping was all a setup. Gideon planned it with the kidnappers. He knew you would give up everything for him, so he used that to his advantage. Do you know what he did after you paid the ransom? He took back half of it. That money became the foundation of his business empire today." Sabrina looked at me with an icy smile and said coldly, "Because, at that time, I was already pregnant with Gideon's child." At those words, my expression darkened even further. I had not expected that everything had been orchestrated by Gideon himself. So back then, every sweet word he said to me was a complete lie. "Celine, you must be been sold countless times in a place like that, right? I bet you're excellent at serving men. Women like you are only fit to live like dogs." As she looked at me and spat out those cruel words, a basin was placed on the ground before me. I watched as she took out a bowl filled with dog food and poured it into the basin. Her voice was cold as ice as she spoke, "People like you don't deserve real food. You only deserve this." Then, without warning, she slapped me across the face. Before I could react, she grabbed a handful of dog food and stuffed it into my mouth. I struggled to spit it out, but she clamped her hand over my mouth tightly, forcing me to swallow. At this moment, Sabrina leaned close to me and hissed, "Celine, let me tell you something. Gideon won't be back for the next 2 days. You'd better behave and stay right here. And as for food? This is all you're worthy of. With that, she flung the rest of the dog food at me. The little boy watched as his mother pressed me to the floor and shoved handfuls of dog food into my mouth. He burst out laughing, clapping gleefully. Serves you right, bitch. You should eat dog food. You're just a stray and no one loves you. And you still want to steal my dad from my mom? Still unsatisfied, he ran up to me and stomped on my face with his tiny feet before turning and walking off proudly. Sabrina looked down at me one last time and said mockingly, "What? Can't handle this? You should be used to it by now, no? In a place like that, serving men day in and day out. This is just your normal life, isn't it? Humph, maybe they let you go because you were too sick and even they didn't want you anymore." I glared at her furiously, but she only smirked with satisfaction before turning on her heels and leaving the room. I knew then Sabrina would not be paying attention to me anytime soon. Chapter 4. I watched as the 2 bodyguards shut the door behind them. Once I was sure they were gone, I quietly took out my phone and called my boss. "Sir, they won't even give me food." I swallowed my pride and added softly, "Sabrina, she made me eat dog food." Over the years, I had followed this man with unwavering loyalty and in return, he gave me unimaginable wealth. Not only had I lived a life of dignity, I even had the tastiest food, the finest clothes and the most comfortable house and transportation. I had not felt this humiliated in years. From the other end of the line, his voice came through coldly. "After tonight, I'll be there. You'll see me with your own eyes." I could hear the anger boiling beneath his words. After hanging up, I quickly hid my phone. That device was the last thread keeping me connected to hope. I did not call the police. I knew it would be useless. Even if I did, Gideon would find a way to trap me here. He could easily claim I was mentally unstable after the trauma abroad. And once the police were gone, the consequences for me would be far worse. So I endured the hunger in silence and eventually drifted into a deep sleep. By early morning, I saw Gideon again. The moment he stepped into the room, he slapped me across the face. "Celine, you vicious woman!" he roared. "How dare you lay a hand on my son? So what if I didn't rescue you? That doesn't give you the right to hurt a child." His expression grew darker as he spoke and a harder slap landed again. After that slap, my cheek swelled instantly. When I tried to open my mouth, it was filled with the metallic taste of blood. I knew that my lips were bleeding from the force of his hit. But even after seeing me like this, Gideon did not stop. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and kicked me hard. The blow landed on my stomach and pain twisted my face as I let out a cry. Gideon's kick landed hard and I crumpled to the floor with a sharp scream. Even seeing me curled up in pain, he showed no mercy. Instead, he continued to punch and kick me without restraint. His son stood at the doorway clapping and cheering excitedly. "Yes. That's right. This bitch needs to know how strong I am. Dad, you are amazing. You made her cry." The boy kept applauding, his face lit up with twisted delight. Then Gideon grabbed a fistful of my hair and growled viciously. "Celine, listen carefully. If you ever touch my son again, I'll kill you." I looked up at him, fear clouding my eyes. He was completely insane. "Dad, let me hit her next. Beat her to death, now." The boy shouted, pointing at me with cruel enthusiasm. Hearing his son's words, Gideon turned to him with a smile and nodded. "Of course, my good boy. Don't worry, Daddy will make sure this woman learns her place today." Then he glared back at me, raising his hand to strike again. At that moment, all I could feel was raw terror. Even when I had been kidnapped, the abductors had not been this brutal. I truly believed I might die here, beaten to death by the man I once trusted. Just then, Sabrina's scream pierced the air from outside the room. "Who are you? How dare you break into my house?" And in that instant, I knew that my boss had arrived. Chapter 5. Inside, Gideon clearly heard the noise, too. His expression shifted and he quickly moved toward the door. The two bodyguards followed right behind him, but the very next second, they were forcefully restrained by someone outside. Then, I saw my boss. He strode toward me with urgency, and the moment his eyes met the state I was in, his expression changed completely. He glared at Gideon and ordered with a commanding tone, "Rip out all his teeth." Fury radiated from him as he strode toward me. On the way, he passed the little boy, and without a word, kicked him hard. The child let out a sharp cry and collapsed, knocked unconscious by that single blow. My boss quickly knelt beside me, his eyes filled with concern. "I warned you long ago that this man couldn't be trusted. But you didn't listen." He sighed as he stared at me, then gently added, "Don't worry. I'll make sure every bit of suffering you've endured is repaid in full." Unable to hold it in anymore, I threw myself into his arms and sobbed uncontrollably. For the past 6 years, I had been his most dependable aide. No matter what, I remained calm, composed and always in control. He had never seen me this broken. Seeing me like this, he froze for a moment, unsure how to comfort me. Then, turning to face Gideon, his expression turned colder. His bodyguards did not hesitate. They forced open Gideon's mouth and began pulling out his teeth, one by one. I watched, my heart heavy. Tears of pain streamed down Gideon's face, but he could not even beg for mercy. Meanwhile, Sabrina clutched her son and wailed. "Who are you people? You broke into our house and hurt my son. I'm calling the police." My boss turned to her with a chilling glare. He pointed at her and asked me, "Is this the woman who fed you dog food?" "Yes," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. Tears streamed down my face again. Seeing this, his expression turned dark as he spoke, "Shove the dog food down her throat." Immediately, several bodyguards seized Sabrina, forced her mouth open and stuffed in handfuls of dog food. She coughed and gagged violently, nearly choking. Her eyes widened with panic as she struggled, pleading silently. But neither I nor my boss spared her even a glance. After all, I had seen far worse during my years abroad. In truth, my boss had always shown restraint in his home country. "Come on, let us go get you something to eat," my boss said gently, looking at me. "As for his family, I'll make sure you get back everything you've lost. We are still in the country after all." I understood exactly what he meant. Teaching them a lesson was one thing, but killing them would cross the line. I nodded and stood up, following him out. Behind me, Gideon glared at me and shouted, "Celine, do you still claim you were clean overseas? Who is that man?" "Gideon, who he is has nothing to do with you." I turned to look at Gideon and saw 3 teeth had been pulled out. Then, I replied coldly, "You and I are divorced." Hearing his outburst, my boss strode over and delivered a sharp kick straight to Gideon's face. His leather shoe hit him square in the nose. Gideon held in agony as blood poured down his face, the bridge of his nose clearly broken. He writhed on the floor, screaming. "A scumbag like you has no right to question Celine." With that, my boss took my hand and led me away. He arranged a hotel for me to rest in and told me that his return this time was for one purpose, to help me take revenge. Then, he handed me a document. "This contains all the evidence of Gideon's tax evasion over the years." I stared at him in shock. "And that's not all. I've contacted his investors. He didn't just evade taxes, but he also secretly stole large sums of their money." Chapter 6. My boss looked at me and said, "Sabrina Quinn has also stolen a lot of money from Gideon's company over the years. Once this evidence is made public, both she and Gideon will end up in prison." At that moment, I finally understood that he had not come late out of indifference. He had been gathering evidence this entire time. "I've already contacted Gideon's investors and informed them of everything. From now on, he has finished." Hearing that, I could not help but smile. "Thank you, sir," I said, my voice filled with sincere gratitude. He simply waved a hand dismissively. "You've helped me earn so much over the years. How could I just stand by and let you be targeted?" As he spoke, he handed me a document. "Well, honestly, I've been aware of what Gideon's been up to for a long time. That's why I didn't want you to come back here. Over the years, I've invested heavily in his company and he has been embezzling funds behind the scenes. The proof is all here." As a shareholder, you have every right to report him to the police. My eyes widened in disbelief at his words. I had never expected my boss to have prepared everything so thoroughly. Taking the document from him, I looked up and said, "I understand, sir." "Thank you." "All right," he said firmly, "from here on out, this is your fight. I'll leave a bodyguard with you. Once you've handled everything, come back and keep working for me." "Yes, sir, I'll gladly work for you for the rest of my life," I answered quickly and earnestly. If it had not been for him, I could not have imagined how I would have survived everything that happened. Also, when Gideon contacted those people, the whole conversation was recorded. That recording is concrete evidence of his crimes. After giving me everything I needed, my boss told me he would return overseas and wait for my return. He would not be getting directly involved since he had far too much on his plate back there, especially after I left. I personally accompanied him to the airport. Before he boarded, I hugged him tightly and said, "Sir, wait for me. I'll be back soon." "All right," he replied with a warm smile, patting me on the back. "I'll be waiting." "Okay. I'll wrap everything up quickly and return to your side." I looked at my boss and spoke up clearly. After he left, I gathered my bodyguards and prepared to head straight to the police station. After all, I now held all the evidence in my hands. But just as I turned around, I was caught off guard when I found Gideon standing outside the airport, waiting. He was flanked by a group of police officers. The moment he saw me, he shouted, "Officers, it's her. She sent people to my house, wrecked the place and even assaulted me and my son. Arrest her immediately." I looked at him and gave a cold, mocking smile. "So he called the police first? Fine. Let us settle everything together." Both Gideon and I were taken to the police station. Once there, I faced the officers and said calmly, "Officers, I would like to file a report as well. Gideon Chase has falsely accused me and worse, he held me captive." As I spoke, I pulled out my phone. During the days I was trapped in that room and terrified of what he might do, that was why I had secretly turned on the recording feature. He never realized that everything he and Sabrina did to me, including their beatings and abuse, had been captured in full on my phone. Chapter 7. Even Sabrina's words when she was admitting that Gideon was involved in my kidnapping had been recorded. When the police reviewed the evidence, their expressions shifted instantly as they turned to look at Gideon. I didn't act alone, I was rescued after asking for help. I wasn't the only one who went to his house or caused any damage, I said firmly, pointing to the video. Hearing this, Gideon's face darkened. He had not expected that I not only had solid evidence but also proof that he had unlawfully detained me. Then, I took a USB drive from one of the bodyguards and handed it to the officer. "This contains a video of Gideon discussing plans with the kidnappers," I stated clearly, handing the USB drive to the police. As the USB changed hands, Gideon's expression shifted again. He glared at me and said coldly, "Celine, are you really going to go this far?" I did not answer. Instead, I calmly pulled out a document and placed it in front of the police. "Officer, this is proof that our company invested in Gideon's business. I am legally a shareholder of his company. Moreover, Gideon has been misappropriating company funds for quite some time." I handed over another document and added, "As a shareholder, I am requesting a full investigation into his financial activities. Additionally, I am officially terminating the company's listing plan." As soon as those words left my mouth, Gideon's face turned ashen. "Celine, stop making things up. When did you ever become a shareholder?" Sabrina was flustered and immediately chimed in as well. The two of them and the other shareholders had signed a bet-on agreement tied to the company's listing. If the IPO was cancelled, they would be forced to pay an enormous amount in compensation. Worse still, once their misdeeds came to light, what future would they have left? I said nothing further to them. Instead, I looked calmly at the officers and said, "Please assign both criminal and economic investigation teams to this case." Hearing my request, the officers immediately understood that this was no ordinary complaint. This was a serious, high-level case. Soon, a large number of officers arrived and took me, Gideon and the others to the police station. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Gideon had no way to defend himself. Suddenly, he rushed over to me and pleaded, "Celine, drop the charges. As long as you withdraw the lawsuit, the company's losses will be manageable and the Criminal Investigation Team 1T pursue the kidnapping case. After all, so many years have passed. Celine, I promise you if you let this go, I'm willing to be with you again." I could not help but laugh at how shameless he was. I stared coldly at him and asked, "Gideon, you want to be with me? What about Sabrina?" His expression stiffened. Then, in a low voice, he replied, "Don't worry about her, Celine. I'll handle Sabrina." "You'll handle her? How?" I looked at him, half amused. Even now, he believed I might forgive him. He even still thought I would sacrifice everything for him. At that moment, I could not help but question my past judgment. My taste must have been truly terrible. How else could I have fallen for someone like Gideon? "I'll make Sabrina leave and the kids will recognize you as their mother. That way, you'll have 2 sons without going through childbirth and we can be together again." Tears nearly welled up from laughing so hard. I had never seen anyone this shameless. "Gideon Chase, do you really think that's even possible?" I sneered and continued as I stared at him coldly, "What do those children have to do with me? And do you honestly believe an apology is enough to make up for everything you have done to me?" Chapter 8. So, Gideon, don't even dream about it. There's no chance of us ever being together again. I looked at him coldly and continued, "You'd better prepare yourself for prison. With the number of crimes you've committed, you'll be behind bars for at least 20 years. It might even be a life sentence." My tone was sharp and my gaze was icy as I spoke. Then, I turned to Sabrina, who was glaring at me with hatred in her eyes. I smiled and said, "As for you, I guarantee you'll be sentenced too. At least, no less than 10 years. By then, your children will be orphans." The moment those words left my lips, both their expressions changed dramatically. Gideon began begging, pleading with me to have mercy. However, when he realized I would not budge, he suddenly tried to lash out. Luckily, my bodyguard stepped in just in time and restrained him instantly. By the time I walked away, both Gideon Chase and Sabrina Quinn had been officially detained. As for their children, the police placed them in an orphanage. A few days later, the police informed me that all the evidence had been gathered. With the mountain of proof, there was no way for Gideon to clear his name. As expected, he was sentenced to life in prison. Meanwhile, Sabrina was sentenced to over 10 years for her role in orchestrating my kidnapping and embezzling company funds. Their children were unwanted and abandoned, so they were left behind in the orphanage. When I received the news, I smiled and booked a ticket home. My boss was still waiting for me. I returned overseas and resumed working under him. He treated me with great care and respect. One day, he told me that he had fallen for me the moment we first met. Unfortunately, at the time, my heart belonged to Gideon, so he never confessed. Now I accepted his love. Soon after, we got married. Our days were filled with happiness and before long, we welcomed a child of our own. One day, my husband returned from the company. He looked straight at me and said, "Gideon Chase and Sabrina Quinn are both dead. Even their children didn't survive." I was taken aback for a moment. They had signed an agreement with several major consortiums. When the company failed to go public and with the massive embezzlement and falsified financial reports, the business was deemed worthless. Do you think those financial groups would just let them off? I listened quietly, then gave a faint smile. If they're dead, so be it. Their lives no longer meant anything to me. Now, I had people I truly cared about. The end. Series 2. As the elevator plummeted from the top floor, a violent drop that seemed endless yet painfully brief. The crash was deafening, metal screeching against metal as the floor buckled beneath us. I felt the sharp pain and warm blood seeping through my clothes. My mind screamed at the horror of it all, because my baby, the tiny life inside me, slipped away. As soon as the paramedics arrived, they wrapped me in blood-streaked bandages, lifting my broken body onto a stretcher. There, I saw a glimpse of my boyfriend, Nicholas Richmond, who came back from the meeting with his secretary, Courtney Miller. His arm protectively curled around Courtney, then he shielded her eyes with a gentle touch, whispering, "Do not look. It is too awful." Without another glance, they stepped through the doors and into the building, leaving me behind. The realization was like a second fall. It seemed that 5 years was nothing for him, because I was never that important to Nicholas, while Courtney's sweet smile would always occupy his every thought. That time, I made a decision I had hesitated before, a job offer from a rival company that had been on the table for weeks. I called them. I am ready to accept your offer. After 2 long days in the hospital, I was finally discharged. Yet, despite my release, there was no relief. The ache in my heart was far deeper than the physical wounds. I was leaving the hospital alone, no longer carrying the life I had just discovered was growing inside me. The morning of the accident had been surreal. A positive test, a flutter of hope, then a nightmare unfolding before I had even grasped the reality. While packing my few belongings, I whispered to myself, I do not even know how far along I was. The thought cut through me like a knife. The baby in my belly had been too small and too fragile after all. Suddenly, the door to my room creaked open, pulling me from my thoughts. For a brief, foolish moment, I hoped it was Nicholas. But it was not. A driver stood there instead. Miss McLean, Mr. Richmond had a sudden meeting. He sent me to pick you up, the driver explained, his voice polite and detached. Let me carry your things. I exhaled slowly, feeling the familiar sting of disappointment. Nicholas always had an excuse, something pressing, something more important. But when Courtney needed anything, he was never too busy. 2 days in the hospital, and not once did he show his face. He had not called, had not come. Nothing. No need. I have got it, I replied, forcing a smile as I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked out. The ride home was quiet. The city lights flickered past in a blur, but I could not focus on anything outside the window. Inside, it felt darker than the night itself. By the time we pulled up to the house, I was numb. We are here, miss, the driver said, gently bringing me back to the present. I reached for my handbag, preparing to step out when something caught my eye. Tucked between the seat cushions was a delicate piece of black lace bra, which was not mine. My stomach twisted. I discreetly grabbed it, slipping it into my bag before the driver opened my door. Thank you, I muttered as I hurried into the house, not bothering to look for Nicholas. I already knew he would not be there. Not yet, anyway. I climbed the stairs, avoiding the elevator without a second thought. The trauma of that day still clung to me, and the idea of being trapped like that again sent shivers down my spine. Once in my room, I tossed the bra onto my dresser, trying to ignore the painful questions racing through my mind. Who did it belong to? And why was it there? The shower indeed washed away the grime of the hospital, but it did nothing to cleanse the doubt and betrayal that simmered within me. However, I brushed it off and climbed into bed, hoping for sleep. When morning came, I woke to the familiar yet unsettling sight of Nicholas lying beside me. It had become a routine, him slipping into bed unnoticed after I had already fallen asleep, as if our lives had become nothing more than parallel lines. We were close, but never touching anymore. His eyes fluttered open under my gaze. You are awake? He asked, his voice groggy with sleep. I did not respond. Instead, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and sat in silence. If you are still feeling unwell, you do not need to go into work, he added, sitting up. There is too much piling up. I cannot afford to take more time off, I replied. My words were flat, emotionless, but inside, a plan was taking shape. I needed to finish what was left at the office, so I could hand in my resignation and leave that life behind. Nicholas nodded, oblivious to the distance between us. Well, after all, your injuries are just superficial. You will heal quickly, he said, slipping into the bathroom, phone in hand, as was his routine. I watched the door close behind him in disappointment. He used to take showers fast, but it changed lately. With his phone always in tow, the duration stretched. I also used to join him, laughing and talking through the steam. But those days were gone. However, I could not bring myself to care anymore. I made my way to a different bathroom, determined to avoid him for as long as possible. When I finished dressing, Nicholas was already sitting on the sofa, a newspaper in hand. He glanced up at me, sarcasm lacing his words. Skipping our morning coffee ritual? You must be in quite the rush. I ignored his attempt at humor, my voice devoid of any warmth. It slipped my mind. A sigh escaped him as he set the paper down. Fine. Let us get to the office early then. We had always gone to the office together, ever since deciding to move in 3 years ago. Back then, everything felt aligned. We had the same goals, the same routines. But lately, I had begun to feel a shift, a subtle but unmistakable discomfort creeping in. Nicholas seemed more attached to his phone than to me. Even when I grew distant, hoping he would notice, he carried on as though nothing had changed, like my silence meant nothing. That morning, I sat quietly in the car as Nicholas, focused on his phone, suddenly spoke up. I need coffee. Let us stop by the takeaway to get breakfast, he said to the driver, not sparing me a glance. Yes, sir, the driver replied, the words punctuated by the quiet tap of Nicholas's fingers on his screen. From the corner of my eye, I could see him chatting with Courtney, his secretary. Nicholas, I left early because Frida had a lot to catch up on after taking yesterday off. Do not rush though, take your time this morning. Courtney, I understand, her team has been busy lately, so she must feel guilty about it. You also should take it easy, Nick. Your schedule is light today, just some proposals to review and a meeting later. Nicholas, good. Can you also make a reservation at the usual place for lunch? Courtney, of course. Any preference on what to try today? I stopped reading after that, feeling the sting of their easy camaraderie. Plans, always plans, but never with me. I was not part of the lunches or the light-hearted conversations. It was as if they were the ones in a relationship, not Nicholas and I. So, what was I to him, really? Soon, we arrived at the takeaway. Nicholas rolled down the window, casually giving his order. I want a hot Americano and an iced Americano. Oh, and a caramel frappe too. Plus, 1 chocolate croissant and 2 peanut butter croissants. That will be all. I did not think much of it at first, assuming he ordered more for the driver. But after collecting the food, he handed me the iced Americano and peanut butter croissant. I stared at the croissant, stunned. After 5 years, did he still not remember that I am allergic to peanuts? I wondered. I could not help glancing at the chocolate croissant and caramel frappe he kept for himself. It was almost laughable. Was he saving them for Courtney? The sting of betrayal ran deeper with every small, careless action. As a result, my voice was cold when I handed the breakfast to the driver at the front. Please take this. I am allergic to peanuts. Only then did Nicholas seem to realize his mistake. Oh, right, he said with an air of indifference. I forgot. Let us turn back. No need, I replied sharply. Just head to the office. I will pick up something nearby. Fine, he said, the conversation dropping into an icy silence. As the office loomed ahead, I reached into my bag, then retrieved a paper bag I had prepared earlier. I handed it to him casually. Oh, right, I forgot to mention. I packed this for Courtney. Nicholas's brows furrowed as he accepted it, curiosity briefly flashing in his eyes. But when he peeked inside, his face drained of color. Chapter 2. At that time, Nicholas surely did not think he would be caught red-handed by me so easily. The fact that something so personal had been carelessly left behind in the car made one thing clear: whatever had happened between them had been shameless. And worse, it should have happened while I was in the hospital, fragile and alone, just 2 days ago. However, I did not expect his shock was almost amusing for me, what was more, his eyes widening in disbelief. Yet, before mustering an excuse, he caught the calm look on my face and decided to play it off. She is always so careless, he said lightly. I did not respond. Instead, I opened the car door and stepped out, breaking yet another habit. I had always waited for Nicholas to get out first, but not that day. However, it turned out that my sudden shift did not faze him in the slightest. No amount of indifference from me could crack his facade of self-assurance. Idiot, I muttered under my breath as I joined the queue for the elevator. But as I stood there, the memory of the accident came flooding back, the blood, the panic. My breathing quickened, and for a moment, I felt as though the walls were closing in around me. So, I closed my eyes, repeating to myself, it is just your imagination, Frida. It is not real. Everything is fine. When I opened my eyes, I was still trembling. Without hesitation, I left the line and headed for the emergency stairs. They seemed to stretch endlessly above me, and I sighed, trying to muster some motivation. Well, at least it is exercise, I muttered, starting the long climb. By the time I reached the office, my legs ached, but the quiet space welcomed me. No one else had arrived yet, so I took the opportunity to sit down and draft my resignation letter. Each word I typed felt like a release, like shedding the weight of years spent waiting, hoping, and feeling invisible. Once finished, I headed to the break room to make my morning coffee. As I poured the hot liquid into my cup, the office started to fill with the sound of arriving employees. Soon, 2 women entered the room, chatting in hushed tones. "I do not think Mr. Richmond has feelings for Miss McLean anymore," one whispered. The other chimed in, "Yeah, I noticed too." When the accident happened, Mr. Richmond was busy calming down his secretary, who was apparently scared. "Can you believe that? So, it is true then? Mr. Richmond is having an affair with her?" The conversation stung like a knife twisting in my chest. They did not notice me standing with my back turned toward them, not until I quietly stirred my coffee and began walking past. As I turned, their faces froze, uneasy. But I kept my expression neutral, unaffected, as if I had not just overheard the collapse of whatever dignity remained between Nicholas and me. The truth was, their gossip was not far off. The hollow shell that once held our relationship was then cracking apart, and soon, even that fragile shell would be gone. I carried my coffee back to my desk, sitting down with a heavy sigh. While I was focusing on my work, it was already 5 p.m. My colleague, Taylor, passed by after she finished packing to go home. "You are working late again? After 2 days off?" I nodded with a tired smile. "Yeah, catching up." She shrugged. "Well, do not work yourself to death. See you tomorrow." "See you," I replied absently as she left. As the clock showed 9 p.m., a voice interrupted suddenly. "Why did not you reply to my message?" Startled, I looked up to see Nicholas, his expression a mix of frustration and confusion. "You must have been too focused on your work that you did not check your phone, huh?" Nicholas asked again while embracing me from behind. The embrace used to be such a romantic thing, but at that time, his presence was suffocating. For some reason the memory that crossed my mind was when he embraced Courtney in front of me, who was covered in blood yesterday. "Yeah," I answered lightly. "You should take a break," he said softly, but his touch felt heavy. He opened the package he brought and placed it near my desk proudly. "Anyway, I coincidentally just bought bubble tea for you." I bought 2 too. There are matcha and Thai tea flavors. Which one do you want to choose? I just glanced with the corner of my eye before returning my focus to my computer screen and answered indifferently, "No, Nick, really, I am fine," I said, more firmly this time. It is too late for me to eat or drink anything heavy. It was already 9 p.m., and I was used to not eating anything after 7 p.m. Could it be Nicholas forgot about that too? Well, I really was not on his mind anymore eventually. So, that was not the big matter anymore. You are right, but sometimes it is okay to cheat. What's more, you do a lot of things too, so you definitely need extra energy, right? He said. Cheating? Like what you do with Courtney lately? Is that what you mean? Was something I wanted to say to answer his words, but I said lightly instead, "No, thanks." He sighed, putting the bubble tea down and moving to sit beside me. "Look," he started, trying to sound upbeat. "I know I was doing wrong this morning, but I promise I will make it up to you. I will talk to the chef tomorrow. How about he comes by and cooks all your favorites? Does not that sound nice?" I just answered coldly, "Good. I also told your manager to reduce your workload because you just took leave, so after finishing this task, you do not need to worry anymore," he continued, still proudly showing that he was the most powerful in Richmond. However, that was not bad. I did not care about being spoiled. Since the faster I could finish everything, the faster I could resign. Therefore, I turned to Nicholas and said softly, "I am very grateful to have you on my side, Nick." Of course, it was all a fake smile. He brightened, leaning in to kiss me, but just before his lips touched mine, I turned my face away, pretending to refocus on my work. As a result, his kiss landed awkwardly on my cheek. "Well, finish up here, and we will go home together," he said, trying to mask the awkwardness. "I will just run to the bathroom real quick." The moment Nicholas disappeared from view, his phone vibrated on the desk. A message from Courtney. "Courtney, why did you buy me all the flavors of bubble tea? I only like chocolate and strawberry, so I told the others to be returned and delivered to you. Have you received them?" I could not help but let out a bitter laugh. So, the bubble tea was not even for me. It was the leftover trash Courtney did not want. With a sudden burst of pettiness, I grabbed my phone and typed a reply to Courtney from my own number. "Frida, Courtney, Nick mentioned you did not want bubble tea. I ended up giving it to security since I do not eat after 7 p.m. Hope that is okay." It did not take long for her to respond. "Courtney, do not worry, I gave the strawberry and chocolate ones to my dog. He loves them." I gripped my phone tightly, suppressing the urge to throw it across the room. How rude. Just as I was about to lose my cool, Nicholas's voice startled me from behind. "Why are you cursing?" I quickly locked the screen of my phone and put it on my desk. Then, I forced a smile, trying to mask the irritation bubbling inside me. "Oh, nothing. Just frustrated with work," I lied, pretending to be absorbed in the document on my screen. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. But instead of pressing me, he gave a weary smile. "You are always working too hard, Frida. Come on, let us go home." I nodded silently, gathering my things and trying to hide the turmoil brewing inside me. As we prepared to go to sleep, Nicholas droned on about his business trip to Paris with Courtney next week. "What souvenir do you want this time?" he asked while lying beside me. "Just take care of yourself, I do not want anything," I replied, my voice laced with exhaustion. Nicholas's face shifted instantly, his furrowed brow deepening and his skin flushing red. He looked like he was on the verge of exploding. "Since when have you been this cold to me?" he demanded, suddenly sitting up from his relaxed position. His eyes bore into me as I lay there, pretending not to care. "Me, cold?" I scoffed, meeting his gaze with sharp intensity. "Is not that you? What are you talking about?" he shot back, baffled. "I always pay attention to you." He seemed to search his mind for what he believed was the source of the tension. Then, with a confident air, as if he de-solved the puzzle, he added, "Oh, the breakfast thing? You are still upset about that? I told you, tomorrow I will make it up to you with all your favorites. Just because I forgot you are allergic to peanuts does not mean I do not care about you, Fry." I could not take it anymore. Sitting up abruptly, I faced him, the weight of our argument too heavy to handle lying down. "Maybe you forgot because you are too busy remembering someone else's preferences," I said while emphasizing the someone else part. He stared at me in disbelief, his anger rising. "So, you are blaming me for forgetting something trivial like that?" He grabbed my shoulder in frustration before continuing, "Do you even understand how much I have to handle since becoming CEO? You should give me some slack if I forget a thing or two. You know I cannot stand a girl who is overly sensitive. You used to get that, but now? Now you are just an annoying nag." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, I annoy you, Mr. Richmond? Maybe you should just fire me then. Clearly, I have committed some grave sin to deserve your wrath." "Enough with the jokes, Fry," he snapped. Then, he headed to the guest room. It was his habit, always slept separately when our fights got heated, as if punishing me with silence. As a result, from time to time, I wondered what the point of living together was when it felt like we were worlds apart. The next morning, I dragged myself downstairs to eat the breakfast the chef had prepared. Not because I was hungry, but out of appreciation for the effort. As I started to eat my spaghetti, Nicholas appeared, his expression unreadable. "Since your work is done, take the day off," he ordered, his tone flat. I did not respond, just focused on my plate, twirling the pasta on my fork as if his words did not matter. He slid a tablet across the table toward me. "In return, make a birthday cake exactly like this one," he said, tapping the screen. I glanced at the tablet, my stomach sinking when I saw the fondant cake with a detailed female figure on top. The reference picture of who I should have made it for was Courtney. At first, I felt a small flicker of warmth when Nicholas talked to my manager to reduce my workload last night, but that fleeting sentiment vanished the moment I discovered the truth. In an instant, any lingering affection I had left for him evaporated, leaving behind nothing but cold indifference. I snorted, exasperated, and started to reply, "You can buy." But before I could finish, Nicholas cut me off. "I only like your cakes. If you do not make it, I will have your manager dump all the Team S workload on you. Your choice." His words hit me like a slap. He was coming back to his dictatorship era I started to forget. With a sigh, I responded by saying, "I will take the cake." "Good, use this card to buy the ingredients. Let me know when it is done." "Got it?" he said while putting the credit card on the table. "Yeah," I answered shortly, taking the tablet and the card, then went away from him. So, I had no choice but to make a birthday cake for his new lover. If the Team S workload fell on me, my resignation plan would be delayed, and I could not afford that. Once I finish this cake, I will finally be done with him. Chapter 3. That thought circled my mind as I stood in the supermarket aisle, throwing baking ingredients into the cart with more force than necessary. Still, baking had always been a source of comfort. My parents used to bake my birthday cake with me since childhood, so that the recipe had been ingrained in my mind. It had been a tradition, one filled with love and laughter as we decorated cakes together. I had also hoped to pass it down to my own children one day. But then, that cherished memory was tainted, used to celebrate someone I could not stand. Despite my growing resentment, I mixed the batter and shaped the fondant, each motion a mixture of muscle memory and bitterness. Hours later, the cake was finished. I stood back, eyeing the delicate figure that resembled Courtney. Should I add horns? I mused darkly. After all, she plays the devil well. Before I could indulge the thought any further, a message popped up on my phone. "Nicholas, have you finished the cake? I have asked the driver to bring it to Courtney's apartment. Just hand it to him." I did not bother replying. Instead, I sent the driver a curt message, letting him know it was ready. As soon as the cake was out of the house, I gritted my teeth and muttered, "I cannot let this mood eat me." With that realization, I headed to my favorite book cafe, a cozy spot I used to frequent in my college days, back when life felt lighter and simpler. Since meeting Nicholas, I had stopped coming. It seemed like everything I once enjoyed had been replaced by his world, his desires, and his routines. I ordered a frappé, sank into a plush chair, and let out a soft sigh of relief as I opened a book. Being single does not seem so bad after all, I whispered to myself, flipping through the pages, letting the words carry me away from the mess of my life. But just as I was almost finished with the book, my phone rang. It was Nicholas. "What's up?" I answered, keeping my voice flat. However, instead of Nicholas's voice, it was Courtney on the other end. "Oh, Fry, it is me," she cooed, her tone saccharine and smug all at once. I did not say a word, waiting for her to reveal whatever poison she would call to spill. "You must be exhausted after making that cake," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "But it is absolutely delicious. I have got to hand it to you, you are not only a great cook, but also a brilliant baker. Honestly, though, with skills like yours, you are more suited to be a maid than a wife." I could hear her smirk through the phone, her mockery sharp enough to cut. Without a word, I hung up. "Just devil being devil," I muttered silently. However, a moment later, Nicholas texted me. He scolded me for something I did not do. "Nicholas, why did you upset Courtney? She was just trying to thank you for the cake, and now you have made her cry. You have totally changed, Fry." A low, dark chuckle escaped my lips. I could almost picture the scene, Courtney's crocodile tears, Nicholas rushing to comfort her, and me being cast once again as the villain. Soon, another message came in again. "Nicholas, go to Courtney's apartment now and apologize to her. Oh, and stop by the store to buy some potato chips." I stared at the message, my frustration bubbling over. "Unbelievable," I grumbled, standing up from my seat. I headed out to the convenience store and grabbed the chips Nicholas had so graciously requested. But as I paid for everything, an idea formed in my mind. Since HR had rejected my resignation letter, citing that it needed to be given directly to Nicholas, I had not been able to officially resign. So maybe tonight, with him drunk at Courtney's place, I could finally get him to sign it. It would be perfect, I muttered under my breath as I hailed a taxi to Courtney's apartment. When I arrived, Courtney opened the door with a sly smile, immediately grabbing the bag of chips from my hands. "Thanks for coming, Fry," she said in a sugary tone that made my skin crawl. Inside, Nicholas was sprawled out on the sofa, clearly intoxicated. His eyes narrowed in confusion as he spotted me. "Fry, what are you doing here? Trying to ruin Courtney's birthday?" He slurred, clearly unimpressed with my presence. Oh, how convenient it was that he was not the one texting me earlier. It had clearly been Courtney's little setup, and here she was, playing innocent. Fry just wanted to give me a birthday gift," Courtney chimed in with a grin. "She even brought me chips. Is not that sweet?" She sauntered off to the kitchen, calling over her shoulder, "Okay, I will get another glass. Let us all drink together to celebrate my birthday." I simply nodded, keeping my eyes on Nicholas as I searched for an opportunity. I had no intention of sticking around longer than necessary. It was not worth it. Fortunately, the room was dimly lit, only a small night lamp casting shadows across the bottles of wine scattered on the table. Plus, Nicholas was definitely drunk. I walked over to him, careful not to draw too much attention. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered, "Nick, one of my colleagues mentioned that it has been hard to get in touch with you lately. He asked me to bring this proposal for your signature. It is urgent, the client needs it by tomorrow." Even in his inebriated state, Nicholas raised an eyebrow, his inner CEO flickering through the haze. "Did you make sure the proposal is solid?" I was taken aback by his brief moment of clarity but quickly recovered. "Of course," I lied smoothly. "I would not bring it to you if it was not ready. Just sign here." I handed him the document and a pen, heart pounding in anticipation. Nicholas grinned sloppily. "Kiss me here first," he said, pointing to his lips. Ugh. My stomach churned at the thought, but for the sake of my future freedom, I leaned in and gave him a quick peck. As expected, he signed the papers without a second thought. Just then, Courtney returned, holding out a glass of wine. "Here's your drink," she said, her eyes scanning me with thinly veiled contempt. I accepted the glass and sat down briefly, only to have her zero in on the ring Nicholas had given me. "I have always admired the ring on your finger. It is so pretty." I glanced down at the diamond ring. It was the one Nicholas had given me on our first date, a symbol of what I thought would be a promising future. How ironic that it had come to an end that day. However, I knew Courtney had been eyeing it for a while, and I was more than happy to let her have it. "You like it?" I said, my voice cool. "Take it then. Consider it a birthday gift." Without hesitation, I slipped the ring off and placed it on the table in front of her. Then I stood up, brushing off the final remnants of attachment. "I will not bother you any further. Enjoy your birthday." Without waiting for a reply, I walked out the door. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rustling paper. Nicholas was sitting on the sofa, reading a finance newspaper, looking oddly pleased with himself. "Why did you change your phone password?" I froze for a second, realizing he must have snooped through my phone while I was asleep. Normally, we did not hide anything from each other. In fact, our passwords were the same, a mix of our birthdays. But since booking my ticket home, I had decided to change the password. "Oh," I said, thinking fast. The updated system asked me to make a new one, so I just changed it. "Fine, then. Anyway, I remember you complaining that we rarely went out to see movies together these days. So, I rented one studio theater for you. The movie you wanted. Let us go there today," he said proudly. I blinked, trying to recall what movie I had even asked to see, since I had not made any such request recently. Then it hit me. It must have been 365 Days, a movie I had suggested for my birthday over a year ago. "Sure," I answered lightly. After all, it would be our last time. As we came to the theater, it was filled with couples, all cozy and close, sharing intimate whispers and laughter. But Nicholas and I were like two strangers moving through the motions, disconnected and awkward. Inside the cinema, after sitting down, Nicholas leaned in and whispered, "I do not know why you were so eager to watch a mafia film like this." Clearly, he had no idea what we were in for. But that was fine by me. At least I would not have to deal with the embarrassment of watching it with a crowd. In the past, I would have loved being alone with him in a rented cinema, just us, no eyes on us, no distractions. But that day, I felt nothing but boredom. Sleepiness crept in as the movie dragged on, and before I knew it, I had dozed off. The next thing I knew, a cinema attendant was gently shaking my shoulder. "Miss, the movie is over." I blinked groggily, glancing around. "Oh, thank you." But as I looked beside me, Nicholas was nowhere to be found. So, I stormed out of the theater and headed straight to the toilet, my mind swirling with disbelief. How dare he leave me like that? I muttered to myself, trying to keep the anger from spilling over as I fixed my makeup in front of the mirror. Suddenly, the door swung open, and of all people, it was Courtney who walked in. Her lipstick was smudged, her clothes disheveled. She caught sight of me and flashed a smug smile, her voice overly sweet. "Oh, Frida, you are here too?" she said, running her fingers through her messy hair. "Nick told me he rented the cinema for my birthday. I thought it was just the two of us here, but I guess not. What are you doing here?" I watched as she sauntered over to the trash can and tossed something inside. My eyes caught the glint of foil, it was a condom. The sight of it made everything click into place. Disheveled clothes, smeared lipstick, and then that thing. I could not help but feel sickened. So that was the reason why Nicholas dragged me there out of nowhere. It was to entertain her the entire time. I forced a smile, one that barely masked the anger bubbling beneath. "Oh, Courtney," I began in a mocking tone. "I think Nick only rented one studio, not the whole cinema. I watched my movie with plenty of other people. Seems like he tricked you." Courtney blinked, her smug expression faltering. I moved closer, lowering my voice as I whispered in her ear, "And for your information, Nick never uses condoms with me. So, it seems like you do not exactly measure up." Courtney's face twisted in shock, but I did not stay to watch the fallout. I breezed past her, feeling a sense of satisfaction creeping in as I walked out. It was not much, but it was something. As soon as I got outside, I pulled out my phone and emailed my resignation letter, complete with Nicholas's drunken signature from the night before, straight to HR. "Frida, sorry to disturb you on the weekend, but I will be out of town next week, so I am sending my resignation now. Thank you." With that out of the way, I returned to Nicholas's place one last time. I placed the card he gave me and a hard copy of the resignation letter on his desk, along with a simple note, "We are done." With my bags packed and ready, I hailed a taxi and headed for the airport. As I waited to board my flight, I sent a quick message to my parents, letting them know I would be home soon. But when I just landed in my hometown, my phone buzzed with a message from Taylor. "Taylor, Fry, I am so sad you did not tell me you were resigning. Why did not you say anything?" I smiled to myself, quickly typing a reply. "Frida, sorry, Tay. It all happened so fast. The new company wanted me to start right away, or I'd lose the opportunity." A few moments later, another message popped up, that time with a tone of concern. "Taylor, are you sure that's the only reason you left? Because the company group chat is blowing up about Mr. Richmond and Courtney." Before I could respond, Taylor sent another message, with a link to a video. "Taylor, check this out." Chapter 4. The video Taylor sent was a CCTV recording from the Richmond office's meeting room. My heart thudded in my chest as I pressed play, half dreading what I was about to see. The footage showed Nicholas, Courtney, and the head of HR. The air in the room seemed thick with tension, even if I saw it through the screen. Nicholas was livid, pointing an accusatory finger at the HR manager. "Why did you allow Frida to resign?" His voice boomed, each word dripping with anger. The HR manager, visibly uncomfortable, stammered, "But I..." Nicholas cut him off, snapping, "What? You are going to make excuses because I signed the document? You approved her resignation without confirming with me first. Just because my signature is on something does not mean I actually approved it. Do you understand?" I shook my head in disbelief. What an absurd excuse, I muttered to myself. Anything with your signature gets processed immediately. Who are you fooling? On screen, the HR manager stood there, completely frozen, eyes downcast. He knew arguing was pointless. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. No one deserved to face Nicholas's temper. Suddenly, Nicholas slammed his fist onto the meeting table with such force that even Courtney jumped. The loud bang echoed through the room, rattling the coffee cup and files strewn across the table. Courtney, startled, stepped back too quickly and stumbled, falling onto the ground with a yelp. Ah! She whimpered, clutching her ankle. Nicholas's expression softened instantly. Without saying a word, he scooped her up in his arms, carrying her bridal style out of the room. His anger dissolved into concern as if nothing had happened. I could only imagine the shock on the employees' faces as they watched their boss storm through the office, carrying Courtney like that. I then understood why the video had gone viral in the office chat group. After all, seeing Nicholas's outburst and then his tender care for Courtney was enough to set the office buzzing. Everyone must have connected the dots between their affair and my sudden resignation. I hope the scandal is worth it for you, I thought as I closed the video, shaking my head. I immediately replied to Taylor. Frida, thanks for the video, Tay. It was interesting, but my resignation had nothing to do with their affair. I just wanted to move on and gain experience in another company. Their drama is none of my business. Taylor's response came swiftly. Taylor, I figured you would not let trivial things affect you. You are too good for that. I am just sad you did not tell me. Frida, you have been a wonderful colleague, Tay. I wish you all the best. Keep in touch, even if we are not working together anymore. After sending that message, I gathered my things and headed out to the arrival gate to meet my father. However, the sight of my father waiting at the arrivals gate made my chest tighten with emotion. He looked older than I remembered, his hair fully gray, and lines etched deep into his face. I had not realized how much I had missed him until that moment. Welcome home, sweetheart, he said, his voice warm and full of love. Tears welled in my eyes, and I ran to him, wrapping my arms around him like I was a child again. Dad, I have missed you so much. I am sorry I stayed away for so long. He smiled, patting my back gently. Do not apologize. We knew you were chasing your dreams. We are just glad you are home now. I pulled back, wiping my tears as I gave him a soft smile. I am not leaving again, Dad. I have got a new job here, and I am staying for good. That is the best news I have heard in a while, he said, his eyes shining with pride. This will always be your home anyway. I nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle comfortably in my heart. Where is Mom? Why did not she come with you? You know how she is, my dad chuckled. After hearing you were coming, she cooked up a feast to welcome you. I cannot wait to taste her cooking again. It feels like forever, I said, grinning as we headed to the car. When we got home, my mother was so happy to see me that she was crying while hugging me. Seeing that, I asked her in a sad tone, "Why are you crying, Mom?" I guess I am just surprised that you are actually coming back. Last year you were so settled there, and you said it felt like you would stay forever. That stung, because it was true. I had imagined a life with Nicholas, a future where I would stay in that city for good, but things had taken a sharp turn. At that time, staying there felt suffocating, like trying to live in a dream that had soured into a nightmare. Yeah, I thought so too. But things change, Mom, I sighed. I am bored of that place now, and besides, I have got a great job lined up back home. There is really no reason to stay. I see, she responded, sounding relieved. Well, if that is your final decision, you know we will always support you. We chatted for a while longer, her familiar voice comforting me in a way I had not realized I needed. Then, I spent the time talking about work, my plans, and what life I would do in the future with my parents. They also listened with enthusiasm, so the warmth of their love filled the space between us. It really did feel like home again. Finally, my first day at my new job with Hilton Group, one of Richmond's main competitors, had come. I prepared myself and brought everything I needed. As I opened the door, my mother came rushing after me, holding a small lunchbox in her hands. I know this is silly, she said with a warm smile, but I made you a lunchbox for your first day. It is nothing fancy, but I thought you might like it. I smiled, touched by the gesture. Thank you, Mom. I love it, I said, kissing her on the cheek before heading out. At Hilton Group, I was welcomed warmly and introduced to my new team. To my surprise, my mentor was someone I never expected. Chapter 5. It was none other than Keith Steele, my high school ex-boyfriend. He stood there, smiling, with a knowing glint in his eyes. I did not expect to see you again. I tried to keep the surprise from my voice. Please guide me well, Mr. Steele. Keith laughed and waved off the formality. Come on, you do not have to call me that. Just call me Keith. We are old friends, right? All right, Keith, I said with a grin. Let us make this work. Seeing Keith again brought back memories. Through him, I also got in touch with my old friends, which made me grateful for it. As I arrived at my parents' secluded house, the last person I expected to see was standing at my front door. Nicholas stood there, just as polished as ever, his hand raised to ring the doorbell. I directly ran, grabbed his arm, and yanked him away from the door, my voice sharp with anger. How did you know where I live? Nicholas raised an eyebrow, completely unfazed by my outburst. It is in your employee file, remember? After realizing the truth, I clenched my fists, furious. Still, you do not have the right to come here. He sneered. As your boyfriend, can't I visit your family house? I took a step back, narrowing my eyes. We are not together anymore, Nicholas. We are done. I am not your girlfriend, and you have no reason to be here. Besides, shouldn't you be on a business trip to Paris? That is tomorrow, he replied coolly, his lips curling into a half smile. Today, I am here to take you back to my house. You do not belong here at your parents' place anymore. My blood boiled. What are you talking about? It is none of your business where I stay. We have broken up, Nicholas. I have resigned. There is nothing tying me to you anymore. Nicholas crossed his arms, his tone becoming dangerously calm. You may have resigned, but that was a mistake on HR's part. I never agreed to break up with you, Fry. I stared at Nicholas in utter disbelief. His audacity was astonishing, as if everything that had happened, the betrayal, the neglect, meant nothing. Did he honestly think that I could just be manipulated back into his life after everything? Just as I was about to respond, the front door creaked open. My heart jumped, and I instinctively shoved Nicholas out of sight. My mother stepped out, her curious eyes scanning the front door. Who is there, Fry? She asked, looking around. I forced a smile, my voice steady. Just a stranger, Mom. He was asking for directions. Do not worry, I have got it handled. She raised an eyebrow, but nodded, satisfied with my answer, and went back inside. Once she was gone, I rounded on Nicholas, dragging him to the side of the house, my voice low but seething with anger. Come on, why are you suddenly acting so weird? You have never done whatever you want without asking my permission first, Fry, Nicholas said angrily as I shoved him. Right, that was me in the past. But that woman had died the moment I saw him embracing Courtney, while I laid there alone, blood-soaked, neglected, and forgotten. Are you serious right now? I spat, glaring at him. Nicholas, this is not about what you want or what you approve of. I have left you, and that is final. Get it through your head. For a moment, his sneer faltered. But he quickly recovered, his expression shifting back to the infuriating arrogance that had driven me away in the first place. You are overreacting, Frida. You made a rash decision, and you were just confused. I came here to fix things, to set everything right, he said. I laughed, a bitter sound escaping my lips. Confused? Nicholas, I stopped being in love with you the moment I realized I was never your priority. You have always put me aside. His jaw tightened, eyes hardening. Whatever you think you know, it is not right. I am here because you are the one I want, Frida. That's all. I shook my head, the words pouring out like a dam finally breaking. No, it does not. It has not mattered for a long time. You always exerted control over me, over our relationship. But you never cared about what I felt or needed. That's why this is over. He stepped closer, desperation flickering in his eyes. Is 5 years of us being together nothing to you? You know, we have lived together for so long, so that marriage would not even be a big deal anymore. What? Are you upset because I did not propose to you until now, so that you leave me? He grabbed my arm suddenly, pulling me toward him. Come on, we can go register our marriage now, if that's what this is about. I stared at him speechless. He still thought he could control everything, even me. The sheer nerve of him made my blood boil. I yanked my arm free, stepping back, incredulous. That is exactly the problem with you, Nicholas. You always think you can fix everything by forcing your way. You do not listen. You never did, and that is why I am leaving. The relationship is not worth fighting for anymore, I explained angrily. He reached for me again, but I raised my hand, stopping him in his tracks. We are done, Nicholas. Do not come here again. And, for your information, I have a new job now. I am working for Hilton Group. He scoffed, but the desperation in his eyes betrayed his calm facade. I knew he had one rule, it was, once trust was broken, there was no going back. So, he really could not hold back his anger anymore after hearing my words. You are making a mistake, Frida. You belong with me, not here, not working at Hilton Group, he yelled at me in a cold tone. I held my ground, refusing to let him intimidate me. You cannot control me anymore, Nicholas. You do not get to decide where I belong or who I work for. I have moved on, and you should too. He shook his head in disbelief, his voice a low growl. No, I know you, Fry. You are just doing this so I will get mad and leave you, right? This is not how a relationship ends. Just tell me what I did wrong, and I will fix it. I could not help but laugh, a cold, mocking sound. You think this is about fixing things? You really do not get it, do you? Fine, Nick, let us play your game. Go ahead, tell everyone you dumped me, if that helps your ego. It will not change the fact that you have been parading around with Courtney for months, and everyone already knows. His face paled, confusion creeping into his expression. What are you talking about? Chapter 6. I laughed bitterly. Nicholas, I resigned from your company because I wanted to move on from everything that seemed to be created by you. You think I will still be with you after all the times I told you and think Courtney is just a sister? Nicholas let out his frustration. How could you honestly believe those lies? It was exhausting, emotionally and mentally. For the past 3 years, Courtney's presence had always bothered me. After all, my relationship with Courtney had always been strained, even from the day Nicholas introduced her to me. Fry, this is Courtney, Nicholas had said, beaming with pride. She is my secretary from high school. Super sharp. I trust her well. At first, I thought Courtney would be nice. You two should always get along because you were destined to be sisters, Nicholas added. But it was not long before I realized Courtney did not see me as a sister. It was as though I was nothing but an obstacle, an intruder in their relationship that had started long before I came into the picture. The more I ignored it, the more obvious it became. The first real clash came when I tried to drop off lunch for Nicholas one afternoon. I had done it many times before, but that time, Courtney stood in my way, smiling sweetly. Mr. Richmond is not in his office, she said. That's fine, I replied, brushing past her. I will wait inside. But Courtney quickly grabbed the lunch from my hand, her grip tighter than necessary. He asked not to let anyone in. I will give it to him when he is coming back. From that moment, the Cold War between us began. I knew she was lying, but I did not push back. Not then. Instead, I handed her the lunch and walked away, pretending not to care. But later, when I saw Nicholas at the house, proudly boasting about the meal Courtney had prepared for him, I realized she had taken credit for my food. The worst thing was Nicholas had not even recognized the taste of my cooking. So, that was the day I stopped bringing him lunch. Courtney's intrusion into our lives did not stop there. She began holding Nicholas's phone during meetings, screening his calls. Every time I tried to reach him, it was Courtney who would answer, her voice dripping with smugness. But when I confronted Nicholas, he waved it off, saying, Courtney just making sure I'm not disturbed. You know how intense meetings can be. But I was not fooled. There was one time when Courtney twisted her ankle in the bathroom, and Nicholas, who had been with me at a client meeting, immediately rushed to her side. The urgency with which he tended to her told me everything I needed to know. He only did not want to be disturbed by me. But I tried to stay patient, convincing myself over and over again that I was still Nicholas's priority. I kept hoping, clinging to the idea that our relationship mattered more than the lingering shadow she cast. But deep down, I always knew the truth. I was never a priority to Nicholas anymore. He had stated it clearly, and I was left watching, helpless, as Courtney wormed her way deeper into his life. The longer she stayed in the company, the more she undermined me, all while keeping Nicholas completely unaware. It was not just the subtle digs or the possessive glances from her. It was the way she monopolized his time, the way she made sure she was always around, lurking. She made her threats silently, through small acts of sabotage and manipulation. And Nicholas, oblivious as always, continued to trust her with everything, while I was suffocating. I used to think she was the problem. But then I realized it was not just her, it was him too. Every time I tried to bring it up with Nicholas, hoping he would see what I saw, he had always had the same response, delivered in a tone that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. Courtney is like a sister to me, Fry. I have known her since high school. She was my sister's best friend, the one who died in the plane crash with my parents. After that, Courtney and I got closer. She lost her best friend too. That's all it is, Fry. Nothing more, he would say with a sigh, as if I was crazy for even questioning it. Foolishly, I was too dumb and chose to believe him. I wanted to believe him. I convinced myself that their closeness was born out of tragedy, not love. But as time passed, I could not ignore what was right in front of me. I started to be aware that Courtney did not see Nicholas as a brother. She never did. To Courtney, I was nothing but an obstacle, an intruder in their relationship that had started long before I came into the picture. The more I ignored it, the bolder Courtney became. Courtney did not even try to hide it anymore. And Nicholas? He let it happen. He let her control him, let her control us. The man I once loved had become a stranger, and all I could do was watch as he drifted further away. The final straw was the elevator accident. I lost the baby, and Nicholas was not there. Not for me. Instead, I watched him coddle his precious secretary, while I laid injured, broken in more ways than one. It was then that I realized I had lost everything, my baby, my dignity, and whatever sliver of love I had left for Nicholas. I could not take it anymore. I had to leave, before I lost myself completely. I do not care anymore, Nick, I said, my voice cold and firm, the weight of years pressing down on me. Whatever your reason is, you have made a mistake. You underestimated a woman's feelings. He stared at me, confusion and frustration flickering in his eyes. But I did not stop. Girls are easily affected, you know? It does not matter how long you have been with me, 5 years, 50 years, or 5,000. If you make someone else feel like they are more important to you, they'll believe it. And Courtney? She has been with you longer than I have. You should have known what that meant, Nick. But you did not, and now you have lost me. Nicholas's face twisted in anger, his pride clearly stung. He yelled, his voice sharp and cutting, so, you do not care anymore, huh? Fine. We are over. You are not as important as you think you are. And just like that, it was over. At least that was what I thought. However, for a month after my separation with Nicholas, I always felt as if someone followed me. Chapter 7. No matter where I went, whether to the office, social gatherings, or even while out with my mother, I constantly felt like someone was watching me. But whenever I looked around, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. Maybe it was just my imagination. As usual, after wrapping up a work project, our manager would treat the team to dinner and drinks at a restaurant. It had become a tradition, a small celebration of our hard work. So, when the night came, I let myself indulge a little more than usual. Keith, ever the responsible one, sat next to me, watching as I took yet another sip of beer. You should slow down, Fry, he said, concerned in his voice. I smiled lazily, already tipsy, and waved him off. Just one more glass, okay? After this, I swear I am done. Keith sighed, shaking his head. You have been saying that for the last 3 rounds. I think it is time I took you home. No way. I pouted, feeling childish in my drunken haze. It is still early. Midnight is the perfect time to leave. A colleague across from us, equally drunk, chimed in. Nah, let us wait until dawn. I giggled and raised my glass to him. Exactly. Cheers. Keith just sighed again, knowing he was outnumbered. He did not drink alcohol, preferring cider or cola, so he was the designated babysitter whenever we had these outings. Fine, I will take the manager to a taxi, but you two behave. My colleague and I clinked glasses, laughing as Keith left. After a while, everyone was gone, leaving just the 2 of us. Keith, ever the gentleman, took my bag and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Come on, let us go. You have had enough. As he led me out of the restaurant, my mind wandered. I could not help but think of the early days with Nicholas, where he drove me to my apartment when I was getting drunk. Back then, everything was different. So full of promise. 6 years ago, I was just an intern at Richmond Group, my dream company. I had left my hometown, my parents, everything familiar to chase that dream. It felt surreal when I landed an internship before I even graduated college. So, I poured myself into the work, fully committed to my future. And that was when I met Nicholas. He was another intern, just like me. At least, that was what I thought. We worked side by side, sharing the struggle, the long hours, the coffee breaks that blurred into deep conversations. It started innocently, laughing at inside jokes, accidentally brushing hands while reaching for the same file, but slowly, feelings emerged between us. It all came to a head after an employee gathering. I had drunk way too much, my head spinning, and it was Nicholas who took care of me. Let me drive you home, he had said, his voice gentle as he carried me on his back. I slurred my words, delirious from the alcohol. An intern with a car? Fancy that. He chuckled awkwardly. It's my parents' car. They let me borrow it. Drunk as I was, I teased him, not knowing he was being far more truthful than I realized. When we arrived at my apartment, I was feeling bold. Will you help me to my room? I asked, my voice laced with intoxicated flirtation. Sure, he said with hesitation, helping me to my door. But when he tried to leave, I pulled him close, kissing him before he could say anything else. Fry, we should not, you're drunk, he mumbled. Are you rejecting me? I challenged him with my low voice. With a frustrated face, Nicholas approached me and caressed my cheek while explaining, trust me, I want you too. I also feel like I cannot say it if I am not drunk, but I think I start to like you, no I mean, I love you. I leaned toward him and said the same thing, I love you too. As a result, his resolve crumbled. He kissed me back, hard, pushing me against the wall as we tumbled into my apartment. I did not remember much after that, but the next morning, I woke up wearing his shirt. The smell of toast filled the air, it seemed Nicholas had made me breakfast. Seeing me wake up, he grinned at me. Rise and shine, princess. Oh my God, did we? I asked, embarrassed, unsure. He smirked, shirtless and only in pants, bringing the toast and sitting on the edge of the bed. Are you going to say it was a mistake? I could not find the words, so I hesitated. How do you feel about it? I finally asked. I think it was not a mistake. Not for me, he replied, his smile widening. I sighed in relief, while taking the jam on the toast with my finger and sucked it before answering, not for me either. Are you teasing me now? Nicholas asked while approaching me. I said with a smirk, to tell you the truth, I do not remember what happened last night at all, will you make me remember it? Nicholas then pushed me to the bed and said in my ear in a hoarse tone, anything for you, my princess. From then on, we were inseparable. What started as a whirlwind romance grew into something serious. Everything seemed perfect, until the day I found out that Nicholas was not just any intern. Chapter 8. He was the heir to the Richmond family fortune, a hidden prince in disguise. He had not told me, and when the truth came out, it was like a bomb detonating between us. I did not mean to lie to you, Fry, he had pleaded. I wanted you to love me for me, not for my name. I was still crying and yelled, but, you are the CEO now, how could I look at you the same from now on? I am still me, I am still your lover, your Nick, nothing has changed about me. Nothing will change my feelings for you either, Fry, my only princess in my life, he explained. But I was just speechless, trying to digest everything. Only after that, Nicholas began to explain slowly. Actually, he would only replace his grandfather in a few more years, but his grandfather's condition worsened, so Nicholas had no choice but to take over. In addition, both of his parents had died in a plane crash, so Nicholas was the only heir left. I am sorry for your loss, I said while hugging him. No, it's in the past. I'm grateful that I still have my grandfather who wants to take good care of me. So, starting today, I will help him develop the company, he answered, hugging me back and burying his head in my neck. I was furious at first, not sure I could trust him again. But he promised me that he would never hide anything from me again. His apology was genuine, and for a time I believed him. Soon, he asked me to move into his house, wanting me close as his life grew busier. I agreed, thinking I could handle the pressure, thinking I was still his only princess. But then Courtney entered the picture. His secretary, someone I had thought was a harmless colleague, turned out to be more than that. I discovered later that they had known each other since high school, much longer than I had known him. That revelation felt like a gut punch. In the beginning, I tried to ignore it. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid, that their relationship was strictly professional. But over time, her presence became suffocating, and the way Nicholas defended her, always prioritizing her, made it impossible to ignore. As a result, we ended up breaking up. Well, there was no need for a dramatic confrontation anymore. My decision had already been made, and Nicholas had no part in my future. As Keith wanted to carry me, my mind wandered back to the present. Without thinking, I pinched Keith's face playfully. I am drunk, but I am still in control. Do not mess with me. Keith laughed softly, his grip on me steady. All right, walk by yourself then. The fresh air will help you sober up. I attempted to walk ahead, wobbling on my heels, trying to prove my independence. See? I can totally go home by myself. I declared triumphantly. Keith followed closely behind, chuckling at my unsteady steps. That is good. As we passed by a convenience store, Keith stopped me. Wait here, he said, sitting me down on a bench. I will get you some water. We'll grab a taxi after. I nodded, resting my head on the back of the chair. My vision blurred slightly, and the world around me felt like it was spinning ever so slightly. As I waited, a familiar voice broke through the haze. You have never been this drunk with me. I blinked, slowly lifting my head. Nicholas was crouched in front of me, his face close, studying mine. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe the alcohol had brought him out of my subconscious. Who says? I muttered, trying to dismiss the image. He smirked, his gaze softening as he looked at me. We always went together, left together. I will never let you get like this. He paused, his eyes sweeping over me. You cut your hair. It looks good short. I ran my fingers through my shoulder-length hair. Nicholas had always preferred long hair, so I had kept it that way for years. But after our breakup, I went straight to the salon and chopped it off. I wanted to reclaim myself, to do something for me. Yeah? I murmured, unsure whether I was speaking to him or to my memory of him. He leaned closer, his fingers brushing my cheek. But you are so thin now. Are you eating properly? It was not until then that I realized it was not a hallucination, Nicholas was really there. Chapter 9. I jerked upright, my head spinning from the sudden movement. What are you doing here? Before I could pull away, Nicholas caught me, steadying me with his hands. Careful, he said, his voice low. You will hurt yourself. I shoved him back, my words slurring with anger. I would rather fall to the ground than into your arms. His expression hardened, frustration flaring in his eyes. I thought you were fine. You seem happy these days. But the moment you see me, you turn cold again, Frida. His words hit me like a slap, and I sobered up in an instant. Have you been spying on me? Nicholas's face softened with guilt. I did not mean to. I wanted to know what you were doing. I did not expect you to move on so quickly after breaking up with me. It hurts, Fry. Before I could respond, Courtney emerged from the convenience store, a shopping bag in hand. Nick, I am ready, her words trailed off as she spotted me. Fry? What are you doing here? I stared at her, my heart thudding in my chest. Of course she was there, always hovering around him like a vulture. I should be asking you that. This is my hometown, I said. Courtney's eyes widened in surprise, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh my gosh, what a coincidence. We are only here for a client meeting, and we run into you. Before I could snap back, Keith returned, concern flickering in his eyes. Who are they, Fry? Nicholas shot him a withering look, his jaw clenched. So, you have found a new boyfriend already? 5 years meant nothing to you, huh? Indeed, I replied coolly, moving closer to Keith, who seemed confused but did not push me away. Courtney, ever the opportunist, wrapped her arms around Nicholas's. Nick, do not worry about her. A woman like that is not worth fighting over. But Nicholas suddenly wrenched his arm free from Courtney's grip and grabbed my hand instead. Do not do this to me, Fry, he pleaded, his voice trembling with desperation. What can I do to make you come back to me? I will stay away from Courtney. I will treat her like a stranger. Anything. Just come back. I glanced at Courtney, her face contorting in disbelief, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I smirked, watching her crumble. Are you being serious right now? Will you really leave her for me? Of course, he answered immediately, not even letting a second spare. But I responded by poking his chest with my index finger and sneered, do not kid yourself. You have never loved me more than you love her. With that, I let go of Nicholas and Keith, snatching the water bottle from Keith's bag. I unscrewed the cap and, in one swift motion, poured it all over Courtney's head. She gasped, her eyes wide with shock as water dripped down her face. How dare you? She shrieked, her tears mixing with the water. I smiled darkly, enjoying her reaction. Are you really going to leave her now, Nick? Can you abandon her when she asks like this? Nicholas faltered, his eyes filled with conflict as he stared at Courtney, shivering in the cold. Do not deny your heart, Nick. You will never be able to leave her for me, and I am done being the third wheel between you guys, I continued. Then I looked at Courtney, and you, do not threaten me anymore. I can act cruel like this if I want. Just take this man, I am fine. Courtney looked up at him, her tear-streaked face softening. Nick. He finally removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, his expression resigned. He said with resentment, I do not expect you to be this cruel, Fry. I am just giving you a taste of what you did to me. But it is not even worth explaining anymore, after all, I have already forgiven you both. Now, get out of my sight. I snapped, my voice laced with anger. Without looking at me again, Nicholas whispered to his sweet secretary, let us go. We have nothing left here. Courtney just nodded obediently and walked away with him, heading to his car which was near the intersection. But as they passed me, I whispered in Courtney's ears, enjoy the trash I threw away. Chapter 10. Courtney stopped, turning to glare at me. Nick is not trash, you fool. He is a diamond I am taking over from you. I let out a low, bitter laugh as they got into Nicholas's car and drove away. A diamond? They are a really perfect match. I sat back down, feeling utterly drained from the whirlwind of emotions that had just unfolded. Keith had been silently watching the entire exchange, his brows furrowed, unsure whether to speak or not. Finally, he broke the silence. Is he your ex? He asked, his voice cautious. I smirked bitterly. No, I was his mistress. Keith's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment, he just stared at me, shocked. Seriously? I did not think you would be that cheap, Fry. I rolled my eyes and playfully swatted his arm, only to regret it immediately. Ow, I winced, rubbing my hand as it throbbed from the impact against his muscular arm. Who told you to hit me that hard? Let me see, he said, reaching over to gently massage my hand. His touch was soft, almost comforting, as memories of my past with him surged to the surface. For a moment, I stared at him. The way his face was illuminated under the faint streetlight really hit me. Keith had always been this kind, this gentle. So why had I left him for my dream back then? It turned out when I was young, I was too naive. Are you feeling better, mistress? Keith teased, pulling me from my thoughts. I scowled at him, embarrassed. Keep teasing, Keith. I am fine. He chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Are you mad? Or are you still drunk? It is my anger keeping me sober, I barked back, and Keith nodded like it made perfect sense. We sat in silence for a moment, and as I glanced at him again, it struck me that Keith, my ex, had just witnessed me tear into Nicholas, the man I dated after him. A wave of awkwardness washed over me, and I jumped to my feet. Ugh, I need more beer, I muttered, desperate to escape the situation. But Keith stopped me with a gentle hand on my arm. Beer will not fix this. Maybe talking will, he suggested. You can tell me what's on your mind. I promise it'll help. I hesitated, unsure whether I wanted to open up. And if it makes you feel better, I will tell you about my own heartbreak, he added with a sly grin. How about it? I tilted my head, intrigued. The second option sounds better. Deal. But you go first, he insisted, sitting back down and waiting patiently. So, we stayed there, in front of that convenience store until midnight, sharing stories like old friends. I told him everything, about Nicholas, Courtney, and the heartbreak. Keith listened intently, his expression unreadable, offering no judgment, just a calm presence. Then it was his turn. But to my surprise, he shared a story I was not expecting, his own heartbreak over me. He had not dated anyone since we broke up. His words made my chest tighten with guilt, knowing I had moved on while he had remained alone. By the end of the night, we both agreed it was time to head home. We hailed a taxi and went our separate ways, the silence between us no longer uncomfortable but filled with a sense of quiet understanding. A few days later, my phone rang when I was just about to fall asleep. The screen flashing with a familiar name, Nicholas. I groaned, realizing I had forgotten to block him. As soon as I answered, his voice was slurred, clearly drunk. Fry, did we have a kid together? I froze, unsure of how to respond. The doctor, the one who treated you, he asked me about your condition after getting a miscarriage a month ago. So, is it true? Nicholas's voice was full of frustration, but also confusion. I sighed, feeling a coldness seep into my words. What if it is? There was silence on the other end for a moment before Nicholas spoke again, his voice cracking. I am sorry, Fry. I did not know about the baby. I was not aware of it. You do not have to apologize, I cut him off. I did not know either until the elevator accident. Nicholas gasped in shock. What? You lost the baby then? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Yes. But listen, losing the baby was for the best. We do not love each other, not really. We have hurt each other enough. It is time to move on. Fry. Stop, I interrupted, feeling the weight of finality in my words. I do not want to talk about it anymore. You have Courtney now, and I have already made peace with everything. Do not call me again. But after finishing my relationship with Nicholas, Keith suddenly confessed to me while we were having lunch together. Wanna start over with me? Chapter 11. His question almost made me choke on the food I was chewing. Keith, ever attentive, quickly handed me water and tissue. Once I regained control, I looked at him curiously. Why do I feel like you are lying when you said you have not dated anyone since me? I asked, eyeing him suspiciously. Keith chuckled, clearly amused. Is that your concern right now? Ask any of our friends, they know everything about me. I narrowed my eyes, feeling skeptical about his answer. A guy as gentle as you probably has women lining up, Keith. So, tell me the truth, have you really been single for years? I asked, scanning him from head to toe. He just smiled, and it was that familiar, tough to crack smile. Is it too soon for you to start something again? I hesitated, feeling a mix of weariness and hope. It is not that it is too soon. I am just tired of starting over. You do not have to start from scratch with me, Keith replied softly, his eyes locking with mine. You already know a lot about me. Maybe time has made you think I have changed, but I am still the same Keith. Really? I asked, raising an eyebrow, smirking slightly. Here's an idea, he said, leaning closer. Let us date for a month. If you do not feel it by then, you can break up with me, no hard feelings. Ah, that was so Keith. He never forced anything, always giving me a way to test the waters without pressure. If it did not work out, he'd let me walk away. If Nicholas was Courtney's diamond, Keith was mine, solid and unwavering. Okay, I nodded, feeling a spark of excitement. Let us give it a try. From that day on, I started spending every evening after work and weekends with Keith. We revisited some of our old dating spots, though much had changed. One afternoon, we walked through a place that had once been my favorite park. I feel like I have been gone for 100 years, I complained, staring at the new mall that had taken its place. Keith laughed. It is not so bad. Let us check it out. I bet you will find something to like. He was not wrong. I ended up buying a few things, and Keith carried all my bags, grinning the whole time. You were right. It is not that bad, I admitted, smiling happily. Keith also noticed my reluctance to use the elevator at work and, naturally, his curiosity got the better of him when I would always choose using the stairs no matter how many floors I had to climb. When he finally asked about it, I knew I could not keep it from him any longer. Why don't you ever use the elevator, Fry? He asked gently one evening as we walked out of our office building. The thought of explaining everything Nicholas, the accident, the miscarriage made my chest tighten. But Keith was not the kind of person I could hide from. His eyes, filled with concern and patience, made it impossible to brush it off. It is complicated, I began, my voice wavering. Keith nodded, waiting for me to continue. So, I told him everything, bit by bit. The trauma, the fear that had gripped me ever since that day. How even hearing the elevator doors ding made my pulse race. He listened, never interrupting, and when I was finished, he simply said, "Let us face it together." I hesitated, but Keith's presence had always been a source of strength for me. Over time, and with his constant encouragement, I began to take small steps toward overcoming my fear. At first, I just stood near the elevator. Then, I watched the doors open and close from a distance. Eventually, Keith coaxed me into taking short rides with him by my side. Keith never rushed me. He was always patient, reminding me that I could take all the time I needed. As a result, slowly but surely, I started to regain my confidence. With each ride, the fear loosened its grip on me. Keith's presence and reassurance made all the difference. Soon enough, the elevator was no longer a symbol of trauma, but a testament to my strength, and to the love that helped me through. It was strange how someone could help you face the scariest parts of your past just by standing beside you. But that was Keith, always there, giving me the courage to face what I thought I never could. Until finally, we had finished our 30 days date. By the end, I felt a kind of joy I had not felt in a long time, contentment, knowing I was loved and that love was not divided between me and something or someone else. Keith made me feel like his priority, even when work was on his mind. It was refreshing. Coincidentally, the end of it also marked my birthday. Keith threw a small celebration with some of our friends. In the middle of the event, I whispered to him, "Is it too late to accept your offer to start over?" Keith smiled, poking my nose playfully. Hey, haven't we been a couple since our first date? Do you still think we are just friends? I laughed, feeling silly for doubting. Keith. I pouted, but my heart was full. He just laughed, and from that moment, our relationship deepened and became more serious. A year later, the trending news across the country was all about Nicholas and Courtney's wedding. Their story was plastered everywhere, with details from their interviews. Honestly, I only learned the real truth about their relationship from reading that interview. On the article, Nicholas said, "Courtney was there for me during one of the hardest times in my life, after I lost my entire family. We were young and did not understand what love really was. We were both chasing our dreams back then also. Courtney nodded in agreement. Yes, I went abroad for college right after high school, so we lost touch. But when I returned and started working at Richmond, our relationship was rekindled. Reading those words hit me like a brick. So, I was just a placeholder for him while Courtney was not around, I muttered under my breath. Just then, one of my colleagues glanced at my screen and smiled. Ah, you are reading about them too? Their story is incredible, such a perfect couple. I forced a smile and nodded, though inside, I felt a hollow ache. Not many people had known about my relationship with Nicholas, so there was no point in defending myself or explaining my side. After everything, I realized that Nicholas and I were never meant to be. We crossed paths to fill the void in each other's lives, but we did not love each other deeply, not the way we had loved people from our pasts. He was a distraction for me after I ended things with Keith, and I was the same for him while Courtney was away. Love could be a mysterious thing. Sometimes, we fall into it to escape the emptiness, but it was not always the deep, soul-connecting kind. But I knew where I truly belonged, with someone whose love was not a distraction but something real, constant, and true. It was with Keith. We would be getting married soon anyway. The end.